Hello everybody, this is a June 2020 updated Yang Zing deck profile. So it's been a year since I did my first Yang Zing profile, and this deck, it's still pretty competitive. I only made a few tweaks to the main deck with one especially very important card, but the extra deck is packed with different cards and from what I had last year, so I am excited to do this profile. Using the extra deck and then also some cards in the main deck, this deck, it can produce some interruption on your opponent's turn. And there's a lot of special summoning from the main deck as always. And with the one main deck choice that I have at 3, that is my new card, your opponent can sometimes not make any plays at all, while your Yang Zing deck is pretty much unaffected. So we start with 3 Chi Wen. So this card is essential because it not only has its normal Yang Zing floater effect, but it also special summons itself from the graveyard and is the very useful level 1 tuner. So this card is also a level 3 or lower tuner that you can bring out with Halqifibrax from the deck. 3 Jiaotu. This is another one that can be summoned off of Halqifibrax, but it's also often a way that you can make Synchros on the first turn. So if you really need to make an Omega or a Draco Berserker to get some kind of interruption turn 1, you can make a Synchro play by discarding 2 Yang Zing cards. 2 Bishis. So this is most importantly the level 2 non-tuner, but it also lets you quick sync like a lot of these main deck monsters do. And making your Synchro monster unaffected by traps can be useful against certain decks like Altergeist or Salamangreat. Altergeist having Protocol, Salamangreat having Rage. 2 Beyonds. So this quick syncs and protects your Synchro monster from battle, which can be useful to protect your level 5 Synchro, the TG Hyper Librarian, which you most of the time want to stay on the field so you can draw more after you Synchro summon more. 2 Swannies. So this is mostly here to be a level 4 non-tuner, but it does buff your Synchro monster's attack as well. 2 Zephroniu. This searches Path, Creation, and 9 Pillars upon destruction, all of which are very good cards, and is also a level 6 non-tuner to easily go into the level 8s with Jiaotu, the level 8s being some of the best Synchros in the extra deck. 1 Tautia, which is what you want to summon from the deck when you need a beater on the field. And 1 Pulao for the last monster. This has a very good effect of making your Synchro monster unaffected by spells, but its low level usually means you'll need a 3rd monster to make the Synchro that you want, so I have only 1 Pulao. For the spells, 3 Dark Hole. This can be the best top deck in the whole deck because many times you'll have 1 or even 2 creations on the field and you'll end up with 1 or 2 monsters more than what you started with after you triggered the whole destruction floating sequence with Dark Hole. 3 Called by the Grave. This is a very important card in the deck because so many decks play Ash Blossom, which can stop special summoning from the deck. So Yang Zing uses as its main mechanic special summoning from the deck. 2 Yang Zing Path. This card, it is dead on the first turn, but later on in the duel it can be very important to replenish the deck. So I feel like it's strong at 2. And finally for the spells, 1 Instant Fusion to bring out Sea Monster of Theseus, which is a tuner. For the traps, 3 Yang Zing Creation. This does lock you into Synchros, but the plus is usually worth it because you need more materials on board to go into multiple Synchro monsters in one turn. I still run some links in the extra deck because sometimes your opponent will pop the creation, but either way, you're usually in good shape. 3 9 Pillars. This card is not only an Omni Negate, but it also triggers your Yang Zing destruction effect. So with Creation on the field or Chi Wen in the graveyard, you can not only stop your opponent's most important card, but also later on that turn, quick sync into something like Omega or Draco Berserker or Herald of the Arclight for even more interruption. 3 Torrential Tribute. I really wish Fury of Kairu Shin was a TCG card. That would make this deck even stronger, but Torrential, it's still a great card if you draw it or open it to clear the board and then set up your Yang Zing floating effects. 3 Solemn Judgment. So this could easily be Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, but I have this in here instead because I wanted something in addition to 9 Pillars that would stop spells, traps, and also summons, but it is totally the player's choice. And finally, 3 Mistakes. So this is the new card in my main deck that is really the winner of the deck. This card stops so many decks from functioning properly because almost every deck today needs to search or excavate in some way besides drawing. So Altergeist, Sky Striker, Salamangreat, a lot more. Mistake, it doesn't affect the Yang Zing deck at all and can sometimes give you 3 or even 4 or 5 more draw phases before your opponent has a way of dealing with this card. And if you save your Solemn Judgment or your 9 Pillars for their Nightmare Phoenix, sometimes your opponent will have to play the rest of the duel with Mistake still on the field. So for the extra deck, 1 Crystron Halcoverbrax. This card helps out the deck a lot because not only can you pick exactly what level tuner you want on the field from the deck, but you can also climb into Link Forwards more easily because you have a higher Link rating after you summon this card on the field than what you started with. Halcoverbrax, it just opens up your plays and allows for a lot more summons in one turn. You can also put Martial Metal Marcher on the field during your opponent's turn and then quick sync using the other Yang Zings. 1 Appaloosa, 1 Borreload, 1 Boral Sword. So it just depends on how far along in the duel you are. All 3 of these cards, they make about pretty much any deck stronger, but if you're early on in the duel, you probably want to go into Appaloosa for the negates. Mid-game, Borreload can help out any problematic monster, and then Boral Sword is how you try to finish off the duel. For the Synchros, 1 Martial Metal Marcher. This card is a tuner and also brings back a tuner, so you'll usually need more monsters on the field other than those 2 to make the synchro you want, but it's still a good option to put materials on the field. Other tuner synchro monsters I considered for Halcoverbrax were Shooting Riser Dragon and Coral Dragon. 1 Herald of the Arc Light. So I had to include this card because a level 4 synchro play is sometimes the only play you have, and this card, it is an Omni Negate as well as hand and deck to grave interruption, and this deck has no deck to grave at all, and it has very little hand to grave outside of Jiaotu. 1 Hyper Librarian. This card, it can sometimes be hard to pull off multiple synchro summons after you already committed some of your materials to this card, but in a synchro based deck, this card is a fairly obvious choice. We also have Black Rose Dragon, another fairly obvious choice. Perfect fit really in this deck because you just blow up the field and also trigger your floating effects. 1 Yaza, so I only have 1 of these because I needed to make space for other monsters, but this card is an untargetable beat stick for one thing, with a floating effect like the other main deck Yang Zings, as well as an effect to trigger other floating effects. So it is a great card, but unlike the Tenyi deck, Yang Zing never locks you into worms, so I thought I would play more of the other synchros. 1 Bastia, so as I said last year, spinning up to 3 cards upon summon is a very strong effect and can sometimes win the duel for you. This card can also pop a monster you control and revive from the graveyard, which at the end of it all will land you with the monsters that you need for the specific combination to make up the levels of the synchro you want. 1 Psyframe Lord Omega. Most generic hand interruption cards are banned, but Omega is still a very good and legal option for messing with your opponent's resources and to stop them from making plays before they even have the option to make those plays. 1 Draco Berserker. So this card is often the synchro monster you want to make turn 1 if you don't go into Omega. So with Mistake on the board too, a lot of times your opponent can't even use the effect of the monster that they put on the field. So banishing it instead of destroying it or negating the effect, actually instead of negating the effect with Draco Berserker, banishing it can sometimes be optimal. 1 Borreload Savage Dragon. I actually bought this card before its price multiplied by 5, but in a synchro-based deck that does play the best Link monsters too, this card is a perfect fit. 1 Chao Feng, so this is my only level 9 option, but this card actually does conflict with Mistake a little bit because it searches a tuner, but I mostly have it in here just to have a level 9 play, as well as be a beater with monster effect interruption, and it does help you special summon from the deck as well. And finally, 1 Sea Monster of Theseus, so this is the best instant fusion target in this kind of a deck, which is trying to make synchro plays because it is a tuner. So thanks for watching this June 2020 Yang Zing deck profile. Have a good one.